What would happen if China decides to invade Taiwan? To answer this question, we have to take a look at the complex claims involving Taiwan. History is rarely a clean break. It is a series of tectonic plates grinding in the dark. In 1949, as the dust of the Chinese Civil War settled, a jagged line was drawn across 100 miles of salt water, like the partition of Berlin or the splitting of the 38th parallel. The Taiwan Strait became a scar on the face of the earth of frozen conflict. The Qing dynasty, China's last imperial house, collapsed under the weight of corruption, foreign humiliation, and internal rebellion. For the first time in over 2,000 years, China had no emperor. Into this vacuum stepped a revolutionary movement led by Sun Yat-sen, who envisioned a modern, nationalist China built on three principles: nationalism, democracy, and people's welfare. From this vision emerged the Kuomintang KMT, the Nationalist Party. But China was fractured. Warlords ruled provinces like personal kingdoms. Foreign powers carved ports and railways out of Chinese soil. The republic existed more on paper than in reality. At first, the KMT did not fight alone. They allied with a small but growing revolutionary force inspired by Marxism, the Chinese Communist Party's CCP. Together, they launched the Northern Expedition, a military campaign to reunify China and crush the warlords. But revolutions are rarely loyal to their partners. In 1927, Chiang Kai-shek, the new leader of the KMT, turned on the communists. In Shanghai, communist organizers were hunted down and executed in the streets. The alliance shattered. The Civil War began. From that moment, China was fighting two futures at once. One nationalist, centralized, modeled after Western states. The other revolutionary, agrarian, and communist. Just as the Civil War intensified, a greater catastrophe struck. Imperial Japan invaded China in 1937. Cities burned, but millions died. The rape of Nanjing became one of the darkest chapters in modern history. The KMT and CCP were forced into an uneasy truce, but the war against Japan did not unite them, it reshaped them. The KMT, burdened with governing cities and fighting conventional battles, bled resources and legitimacy. The CCP, operating in rural areas, mastered guerrilla warfare and land reform, winning peasant loyalty village by village. When Japan surrendered in 1945, China was exhausted and the truce collapsed almost immediately. The final phase of the Civil War was swift and devastating. Despite superior weapons and international recognition, the KMT was hollowed out. Corruption crippled logistic. Inflation destroyed urban support. Morale collapsed within the army. The communists moved like a rising tide. City after city fell. Manchuria, Beijing, Shanghai. By 1949, Mao Zedong stood in Tiananmen Square and declared the birth of the People's Republic of China. For Chiang Kai-shek, there was only one option left. In one of the most consequential evacuations in modern history, the KMT fled. Nearly 2 million soldiers, officials, intellectuals, and civilians crossed the Taiwan Strait to the island of Taiwan, then known as Formosa. They carried with them China's gold reserves, priceless cultural artifacts, the institutions of the old republic. They did not see themselves as exiles. They believed they would return. Taiwan became a government in waiting, frozen in time, claiming to be the true China, while the mainland moved in an entirely different direction. 2. Governments. 1. Civil war. No peace treaty. The Taiwan Strait became more than water. It became a pause in history. On one side, a communist state forged through revolution and centralized power. On the other, a nationalist regime under martial law, later transforming into a democracy. Both claimed legitimacy. Both claimed China. Neither surrendered the past. This unresolved ending, this unfinished civil war is why Taiwan is not just an island, it is the last chapter of China, Isabenta century revolution, still waiting to be written. And every jet that flies across the strait today, every warship that passes through those waters, is not starting a new conflict. They are returning to an old one. For decades, the world treated the Taiwan Strait as a relic of the Cold War, a frozen dispute contained by distance and diplomacy. But history does not stay buried. As China rose from isolation to global power, the memory of 1949 did not fade. It Ardenne to the Chinese Communist Party. Taiwan is not a neighbor. It is the last uncollected debt of revolution. Beijing calls it the One China principle, the claim that there is only one sovereign China, and Taiwan is part of it. But on the island, a different reality emerged. Taiwan democratized elections, replaced generals. Identity shifted from Chinese in exile to Taiwanese at home. What was once a temporary refuge became a permanent society, and that transformation changed everything. As China's military modernized, the balance across the strait began to tilt. Missiles appeared along the coast. Jets crossed the median line. Naval drills encircled the island. What had once been symbolic pressure became rehearsal. Each maneuver carried the weight of history on the risk of miscalculation. The Civil War may have begun in China, but its consequences are global. The United States, bound by strategic ambiguity, positioned itself as Taiwan's shield without calling it an alliance. Japan, once an invader, now stands as a front line that its security tied directly to Taiwan's survival. The strait became more than a domestic dispute. It became a global fault line. Then came the chips. Taiwan emerged as the world's most critical semiconductor producer. Phones, cars, weapons, and hospitals. In a digital age, Taiwan became indispensable. Any conflict here would not remain regional. It would ripple through every economy on Earth. For the first time, the unfinished Civil War carried the power to paralyze the modern world. This is not a sudden crisis. It is the delayed impact of a war that never ended. Warlords once fractured China. Ideologies tore it apart. Exile froze it in place. Now, history presses forward again toward resolution or catastrophe. When the ships move, when the sky fills, when the first missile breaks the water, does the world intervene, or does it watch? History is holding its breath. Subscribe to get a notification, because in the next episode, we analyze through historical narrative, military might, the regional security at stakes, of what might happen if the strait ignites, and discover what happens after the fire.